I'm wrapping up our message series on applied metaphysics today, and I'm just wondering if anybody remembers or cares about what the word metaphysics means. Anybody want to take a shot at it? Shout out loud. Metaphysics, what is it? Beyond the physical experience. Do we have any other interpretations? Margie? The spiritual realm. Yeah, metaphysics. You know, Facebook got so hip when they changed their company name to Meta, like, we're out there, buddy. So think of meta as beyond and physics as the physical, the material, the literal. And why do we care about that? Because the physical, the material wouldn't exist without it. That it is the energetic source of all that is that stands underneath it. And when Paul wrote to the Hebrews about there's nothing that is visible that didn't start in the invisible, then he had a clue to it. He understood. We could not have bodies. We could not eat food. All that stuff that we can touch and taste, we couldn't experience if there wasn't first an invisible realm to make it all possible, that's sourcing it at this moment. And part of the questions that we've been looking at is not only why do we exist or how do we exist, but what's the nature of God? What's the nature of humankind and how do they interact with one another? And we talked about those key elements that we use to describe God as life. The life force in the body is God expressing as that power. That the love we feel for one another is God expressing as that love through us, as us. That money that we spend is God expressing as the energy that becomes things. Substance is what we call it. And we talk about intelligence, wisdom, the omniscience of God. Omni being the all, the one, and the science on the end of that is just about intelligence, knowledge, all knowledge. And I want to talk a little bit more about that to wrap things up today, that omniscience of God, that intelligence, and it's that which basically is holding everything in the mind. It's you and I are being held inside the mind of God right now. Just think about that for a few days until your brain explodes. Yeah, but it starts to make sense when we recognize that something that Isaiah said, it's a prophet in the Old Testament that's speaking for God, says, before they call, up here on the screen, Christina, before they call, I will answer, and while they're yet speaking, I will hear. Isn't that cool? That we don't have to worry about where our information is coming. It's already being given before we even need it. That's how present the intelligence of God is for us. And it's available for, the most difficult things we're going through, but also for the simplest things like what to fix for dinner tonight. Ask any tired mom, and she would like to know that. How many times have we gone into work today and tried to decide, should I work on this project or that project? Well, guess what? There's a divine intelligence that has the highest answer for that within us. Should I sell my house now or wait till the interest rates come down? That's the question I'm leaning into. And I'm not leaving town. No, I'm not leaving town. Yes, just clear that up. So, is it time to sell the house? Is it time to buy a house? Which house? That house? That house? What is my higher intelligence telling me? When I'm trying to decide whether to leave the job, start somewhere else, go back to school, take different classes, what is my higher self telling me? That mind of God. We're making those kinds of choices all day, every day, big choices and little choices. Wouldn't it be nice if we could be sure that the choices that we're making are being guided by the highest mind available to us? And I think that is what Jesus was referring to when he said, you shall know the truth, and that truth will set you free. But how do we get there? How many times do we wish we knew the truth? And I think I've seen in the last few decades kind of a shift, because I think our heart is more audible to us now. We're yearning more for that connection with Spirit, so that it's starting to show up in our lives, where we're seeking it more. We're seeking to know that truth. And meditation has become a way to do that. We've seen that show itself in a lot of different ways. in our last few decades. I know when I was first introduced to meditation, it was probably in the 80s, and I lived in California, and my family lived in Illinois, and they came out to visit me, and I just sat down one day and just closed my eyes. I thought they were all watching TV, and I just kind of opened my hands in my lap and was just breathing, and one of them looked over at me and smacked me and said, "Stop doing that." I was like, what? It scared them, to see somebody meditating, because at that time it was, I don't know, from the dark side or something. So can you see how much meditation has become accepted in the world? I mean, sometimes corporations are encouraging their employees to use it so that they will be a more focused thinker, more concentrated in what they're doing. And we've seen, how about when entrepreneurs are starting something new in their life? How many of them get into the quiet and kind of visualize what they want until that creative idea comes to them to make it happen? How many times, well, first of all, who here knows who Phil Jackson is? Who is he? A coach. Yeah, he coached the Bulls, he coached the Lakers. He taught his players how to meditate so that they would be better players out on the court. What? He was a player first. That helped him know what was needed, right? But he's a Zen guy. And also therapists will teach their clients to use meditation, maybe to help them get to the source of the problem or discover their purpose or break a bad habit. We've seen Buddhists using meditation from, since Buddhists actually became present in the United States, and we saw them using meditation as their way of being present in the moment, to turn away from the regrets of the past and to stop worrying about the future and just be here and now. Lots of reasons to meditate, lots of people doing it, lots of styles of meditation. And I'm here to talk about one today that Jesus, I think, lived and taught, and on a regular basis. And his words were about seeking the kingdom first. Do you remember that? Seeking first that kingdom. And to me, that's seeking first that invisible realm, becoming aware again and again and again that you're not just physical, that outside, inside, through, as there is an invisible realm that is you, an invisible spirit. And that's what our prayer time is about. It's something that when we get into it, we're reaching for an awareness of the superconscious with our conscious mind, and hopefully our subconscious mind will come along with it. Because the subconscious really needs to learn how to listen to that superconscious. Otherwise, it just keeps doing what it's done from the past. We talk about that over and over again. So Jesus's method was to be still, to be quiet, and to put his attention on that presence until it began to live through him. And he referred to it as the secret place. And he learned that from, his Hebrew teachings, talking in the Psalms, up here on the screen, Psalm 91. He that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. So Jesus said it this way: when you pray, go into your room, and when you've shut your door, pray to your Father who's in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. To me, that secret place is a form of mystical prayer. We go into a form of mystical prayer. Metaphysical prayer might be something where we create with our mind by affirming the truth about God in relationship to what it is we want to create. So if we're trying to create health, we focus on the life of God. But this is not about trying to create anything. It's simply about experiencing God. That's not something that the brain can easily do on its own. As a matter of fact, we need to get it out of the way. We need to train it to stop thinking and let that higher self within us make itself known. So it's not a material journey. It's getting quiet and reaching for that sense of communion with that one presence and power. And it's something that reminds us that there is only God, and I am God expressing. It's a chance for us to remember that we are an opening for God. One of my favorite quotes is from Ralph Waldo Emerson up here on the screen. He said, "As there is no screen or ceiling between our heads and the infinite heavens, So there is no bar or wall in the soul where man, the effect, ceases and God, the cause, begins. There's no separation between that. We lie open on one side to the deeps of spiritual nature, to the attributes of God. This is us awakening to our true self, where there is no barrier, there is no boundaries, there is simply the presence, and we are expressing as that. So this Father that sees us in secret, in other words, when we get into that secret place, into that silence and communion, then ultimately the results are the Father rewards us openly. So we move from the spiritual dimension back into the material dimension, and that's where it starts to make itself known in rewards, and we'll talk about those. Something that Emily Cady up here on the screen, if you remember, we've been looking at her book throughout this Applied Metaphysics, Lessons in Truth, and she had a lot of ideas of how we are rewarded, and it's an old-fashioned word, a biblical term that we're using for really just an outer expression of our inner self. So it's not like a God that's got a closet of prizes because, okay, you meditated today, so I'm going to give you this. Oh, you didn't meditate long enough, so I'm not going to give that to you today. Not that idea. It's just once your spirit is able to express on a regular basis, one with God, then it starts to press out into our physical experience. So here are a few things that Emily talked about. She said that the spirit will work marvelous changes in you. You'll have a strange new consciousness of serenity and quiet, a feeling that something has been done, that some new power to overcome has come to you. She said it's a knowing that the Father and I are one with a new meaning, a new sense of reality with a capital R. She says all the hard things become easy. Wouldn't that be nice? Troublesome things no longer have power to worry us. The rasping people and things of the world lose power to annoy us. We do not have to deny evil. We know in that moment that evil is nothing at all. We no longer rigidly affirm the good from a sense of duty, but with delight and spontaneity because we cannot help it. Faith has become a reality. This is the kind of person we start being when we spend regular time in that secret place. And when those rewards come, the reason is that when you spend time in the secret place, your vibration changes. Your energy changes. And if you have not heard those words used about you, just think about how often you come across somebody on a daily basis who just being next to them feels like you want to run away. That's because their energy, their vibration is lower and slower. And then you come across that person who is smiling and open and receiving and listening, and their heart is filled with love, and you sense that. And that attracts you to that. You like that. That's just another vibration of our beingness. And where does it begin? In consciousness, what we're thinking, what we're believing. So think about this. When you start spending time in the secret place, your consciousness is aligning with the one mind, which brings your energy into that higher frequency. Now you're dwelling in the spiritual dimension, and you carry that with you out into the world. You have to go back and replenish, but as you spend time, you carry it with you, and suddenly you don't know or don't need to know how to heal your body because now you're living in a dimension where there is no sickness. Think about that. No longer do you need to know how to solve a problem because now you're living in a dimension where everything is working together for good. You don't need to know how to deal with or overcome that enemy because now you're living in a dimension where there's nothing against you. You understand that? I'm not talking about leaving the body and dying. I'm talking about in the body. You have brought your frequency up high enough that you're basically in that spiritual dimension most of the time. Jesus was the master at that. He showed us how to do that. And first it was because he regularly spent time away from people. He'd go up on the mountain or he'd go off to his quiet place and remember the truth of who he was. Our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, said that by the power of his word, Jesus penetrated deeper into omnipresence and tapped the deepest resources of his mind, whereby he realized or released the light, life, and substance of spirit, which enabled him to get to the realization that wholly united his consciousness with the God mind. That's when he knew it's not I, it's the Father within that's doing the work. And I and the Father are one. So how do we spend time in that secret place? Look at what Charles said right at the beginning. By the power of his word, Jesus penetrated deeper into omnipresence. So words, we don't necessarily go into with an intention to get into the silence talking, but we can use our thought, divine ideas, to bring us into it. How many times did Jesus say, I am the light of the world. I am the way. I am the truth. He was using his words to remind him he and God were one. So he's teaching us how to do it. And some of the things that Emily Cady talked about doing were getting apart, as Jesus demonstrated. That means, you don't have to get in your car and leave town, but just try going into some quiet room in your house and shut the door. And when you do, turn your phone off. Don't just put it on silence, because we can all hear our phone on silence, can't we? So it needs to be completely silenced so that you can get into the silence. Turn it off. Go apart. And then just use your thoughts inwardly to start turning toward God, giving your attention to the presence within you. It's not like you're straining. It's not like you're reaching outward somewhere, out into the universe somewhere. It's right here at the heart of your being, that presence you're trying to connect with. And it's not like just a chance to not think about anything. You're not passive. I think the way she called it was actively taking what God is giving freely. So here's this peace, here's this knowing, here's this love, giving of itself. Be watching for that, be expecting that, and allowing that. And as your thoughts carry you into that presence, then we just slow the thoughts down with more quiet time between them. And we're waiting. It's as if we're waiting for something to happen, but our whole focus is on Spirit, Source, God, Creator within us. Up here on the screen, this old scripture. Those who wait for the Lord shall gain new strength. There's some more rewards. Mount up with wings like eagles. Run and not be weary. Walk and not faint. Wait for the Lord. We do that in this secret place. And I promise you, your mind is going to fight it. It's going to get distracted. Your to-do list is going to come in and start thinking about that. I could go 10 minutes on that before I realize I've been carried off to my to-do list. So just be mindful. Just keep watching. It might want to go to the past and regret something that's happened, or sit on the future for a minute and worry about what's coming up. So you just notice it, and then you just use one of those divine thoughts to bring you back to, oh, no, I'm in the presence. I'm waiting on God. That's all I'm doing here. So we're not seeking anything, but just an awareness of God. And this ultimate experience is that we have moved into a silent space. I got to say, luckily, I've already graduated and been ordained, so they can't take it from me. But I'm going to argue just a little bit with some of our more modern teachers who would say that the secret place or the silence is where you basically are completely unaware of anything, like you're unconscious. And then you kind of come back from that, and where was I? Well, if you weren't asleep, which is probably some of it that happens that way, it's pretty rare that you can get to that point where you're not aware of anything. You've basically checked out. I didn't see that in any of Emily Cady's writings. When I read Charles Fillmore's description of the silence, he doesn't say that you're unconscious. He says you've just silenced the thoughts, and now you're aware and can hear that voice of God should it speak. But we're not seeking that. We're not seeking some giant sign from heaven. We're just seeking to be aware of the presence, that's all. And just being mindful when a thought creeps in, and then you put it back outside by using certain phrases, like something up here on the screen, I wait upon you, God, or I rest in your presence. You're working in me. Fulfill your highest thought in me now. Just one of these sentences. Might learn one of them by heart and let them come back to you over and over again when you need them. So at some point when you do spend enough time there, I would recommend, if you haven't done this regularly, just start with 5 minutes. Don't make yourself go any further than that. But at some point, your body's going to start to get restless, and that's just a clue you're done. And maybe the best way then to bring yourself back fully into the present is just think of what you're grateful for. Just be grateful that you've had that time where you've been turned towards spirit and you've been receiving at an undetectable level for our conscious mind. But your higher self knows, and that's all that's important. It's communicating with that subconscious level of our thinking. So just create time, point it in the right direction, slow those thoughts down until there's quiet in between, and then until you're finally just still. If you get distracted, bring it back to one of those thoughts. And then when you start to feel restless, you get up and go. We're going to practice that today for a lengthy time. We're going to go for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. If you were one of our 9 a.m. services before COVID attendees, that's what we did every week. But it'll be good practice for us. And it's, as you know, best to do when you're alone. So when I'm here with you guys, even if I wasn't the minister sitting up here leading you in this, I would be aware of you, and that's distracting to me. It's hard for me to turn that off. So this is just a test run for you to kind of get some practice. And I will be speaking words occasionally that will help you stay on track. I'm going to assume that you're getting distracted, and I'm going to use words that will help bring us back. But I'll slow that down a little bit, less and less, so that you have more and more time in just the quiet, into that secret place. We're not about seeking signs. If you find yourself restless, then just breathe and come back to one of those ideas, okay? So hopefully you can sit for 15 minutes. Are you up for that? I'm going to ask Mark to come up and play with us, and you can turn the lights down a little bit. Yeah, let's just see how it goes. You won't be graded. Just count this as an opportunity for your beingness to recover from a busy week and learn how to turn your thoughts towards that presence. So let's just begin by closing our eyes and taking a deep breath. Have our thoughts turn to our heart in our body, imagining that's our connecting point. And breathe through that space. Feeling your shoulders dropping and your hands open. Your feet are connected to Mother Earth. And I notice and I remember there is only one presence. Here, now, forever. And I am one with that all-loving goodness. I know this presence abiding within me as me. Spirit is alive here and now. I rest in all power, and all answers that I seek are here now. In this sacred space, I rest calm and assured that even now I live and move and have my being as this divine presence. In serenity and peace, I gratefully receive what God gives freely, here and now. As I wait upon you, God, your perfect will is being done in me now. In perfect stillness, relaxed and open, my thoughts are one with the presence of divine mind. I am open to knowing divine truth. I wait, relaxed and open, trusting that God flows through me as peace, as wisdom, as love and power. I rest peacefully in the midst of divine blessings and remember all God's gifts. In the presence of God's good, I am free from all judgment, healed from all disease. My life is redeemed from destruction into wholeness. I'm satisfied with the good now. Now, while I wait on the source of all life. As I wait in the stillness, divine work is being done. Spirit works in and as me. As I receive what I seek, as I rest in this divine presence. I am renewed and inspired with the highest thought from Divine Mind. This presence radiates life and love through my being, expressing as my highest self. I am an opening for the divine, always one, never separate. I give thanks for this time, open and receptive to all that is good, that I carry that forth throughout my day, that perfect wisdom guides my steps, that the power of life enlivens me, that the sweet presence of love is working for good through and as me, for God and I are one, and all is well. This is the truth of my being, and now I allow it to be.